Humans, a species whose very social fabric depends on mutual trust, are simultaneously some of the most proficient and laughably transparent deceivers in the animal kingdom. This paradox begs the question, how did our ancient ancestors, those grunting, spear-wielding hominids, ever manage to lie effectively enough to survive, let alone thrive, when a single misstep could mean immediate ostracization, starvation, or a swift end by a rival clan? The prevailing wisdom suggests complex social living demanded honesty, yet the archaeological and anthropological records whisper a different, far more cynical story. Perhaps the capacity for strategic misdirection was not a social defect, but a foundational survival mechanism, a cognitive tool as vital as fire or flint. Imagine the very first lie, a proto-human pointing vaguely into the jungle, indicating non-existent game to divert a competitor from a hidden cache of berries. This wasn't merely a factual error, it was an intentional manipulation of another's perception, a calculated risk. The consequences were profound. If detected, the liar faced physical retribution, or worse, a complete loss of credibility, rendering future social interactions impossible. Yet the reward, personal gain, a full belly, a safer sleeping spot, exclusive access to a mate, must have been compelling enough to offset the considerable danger. This introduces a deep mystery. What precise cognitive architecture allowed these early deceptions to emerge, persist, and eventually become so intricately woven into the human experience that we now accept a degree of everyday duplicity as social lubrication rather than an outright threat? The very structure of our minds, the development of specific neural pathways, must have been subtly yet fundamentally reshaped by the evolutionary pressure to both deceive and detect deception. The genesis of effective deception rests upon a sophisticated cognitive bedrock, theory of mind. This isn't just about knowing someone else exists, it's the profound ability to attribute mental states, beliefs, intentions, desires, knowledge to others, and crucially, to understand that these mental states might differ from one's own and from objective reality. Without theory of mind, a lie is merely a mistake, a misstatement. With it, a lie becomes a deliberate act of engineering someone else's perception. For early hominids, the development of this capacity was likely coevolutionary with language and complex social structures, emerging roughly 300,000 to 100,000 years ago. Consider a scenario. An ancient human discovers a prime foraging spot teeming with tubers. A purely honest individual would lead the entire group there. But a hominid with an emerging theory of mind could deduce, if I tell them about the tubers, they will believe me, and they will come, and then there will be fewer tubers for me. So I will tell them the tubers are elsewhere, or that the area is dangerous, and they will believe that instead. This isn't simple instinct, it's a multi-layered simulation of another's consciousness, and the manipulation of that simulation. This cognitive burden is immense, requiring a working memory capable of holding not only reality, but also the fabricated alternative, and the understanding of how communicating the fabricated alternative will impact the listener's subsequent actions. The neurological machinery for this, involving regions like the prefrontal cortex for planning and inhibition, had to expand, providing the processing power for this Machiavellian chess game. The survival advantage of such a capacity was clear. Hoard resources, misdirect predators from vulnerable offspring, secure a mate by fabricating a rival's weakness. The initial flicker of deceit was not a simple act, but a complex cognitive feat, a true leap for early human intelligence. The moment deception entered the social toolkit, it ignited an evolutionary arms race. For every hominid perfecting the art of the poker face, another was honing their ability to read micro-expressions, detect vocal tremors, or notice inconsistencies in a narrative. This wasn't a static skill, it was a constant, dynamic escalation between liar and lie detector, each pushing the other towards greater sophistication. The stakes were incredibly high. A successful lie could mean survival, increased reproductive success, or elevated social status. A failed lie could result in violent retribution, immediate banishment from the group, or the slow death by ostracization. Anthropological studies of contemporary hunter-gatherer societies reveal intricate social norms against deception, but also a pervasive awareness of its presence, indicating a deep evolutionary history. The physical and behavioral markers associated with lying became crucial cues. Did the eyes dart? Was the posture unusually rigid or relaxed? Did the narrative contain too many details or too few? These subtle signals, often processed subconsciously, became the battleground for trust and deception. This constant vigilance fostered the development of sophisticated social intelligence, where reputation became a valuable currency. A known liar was mistrusted, their claims scrutinized, their influence diminished. This pressure led to more sophisticated lies, layered with plausible details, delivered with convincing affect, demanding even more acute detection skills. The environment didn't just select for stronger hunters, it selected for more persuasive deceivers and more astute truth-seekers, fundamentally shaping the very neural pathways that govern our social interactions. As humans transitioned from small, nomadic bands to larger, more complex tribal structures, the nature of deception subtly shifted. Lying was no longer solely a tool for individual gain, it became a strategic instrument for group cohesion, social harmony, and even the maintenance of order. The emergence of white lies and strategic ambiguity served to avoid direct conflict, preserve reputations, and smooth over potential social ruptures. Imagine a less capable hunter returning empty-handed. Instead of a brutal, shaming truth, a leader might offer a gentle fabrication. The spirits of the forest were against us today, my brother. This lie, while factually untrue, prevents humiliation, preserves morale, and maintains group unity far more effectively than harsh honesty. Furthermore, the capacity for large-scale deception, for crafting shared fictions, became central to the consolidation of power. Shamans and early leaders could spin elaborate myths about divine mandates, ancestral spirits, or sacred rituals, using these narratives to enforce rules, mobilize resources, and control populations. These weren't lies in the crude sense of denying observable reality, but rather elaborate constructions of truth that served specific social and political functions. The open loop from Act 1, the question of the first lie and its non-destructive nature, begins to resolve here. The earliest deceptions weren't necessarily malicious individual acts, but could have been nascent forms of social engineering, subtle manipulations that allowed fragile human groups to navigate the treacherous waters of cooperation and competition. The ability to collectively believe in things that aren't physically present, shared fictions, is a hallmark of human culture, and it's founded on the very same cognitive architecture that enables individual deceit. The enduring legacy of our ancient ancestors' struggle with deceit is profound and pervasive. What began as a risky, individualistic survival tactic has morphed into an indispensable, albeit morally ambiguous, component of the human condition. Our capacity for deception, both towards others and ourselves, is woven into the very fabric of our societies, our language, and even our art. Consider the elaborate fictions of literature, the carefully constructed narratives of politics, the subtle artifice of social etiquette. All are descendants of that primal cognitive leap that allowed one hominid to intentionally mislead another. The ultimate irony, perhaps, lies in the human capacity for self-deception, a sophisticated internal lie that allows us to maintain self-esteem, rationalize questionable decisions, or endure harsh realities by constructing comforting falsehoods within our own minds. We are, in essence, our own most convincing liars. This inherent self-deception is often a buffer against psychological distress, a mechanism to maintain a coherent self-narrative, proving that the ancient survival utility of misleading information has been internalized to a startling degree. Our earliest lies weren't just about gaining an edge, they set us on an evolutionary trajectory where the line between truth and advantageous fiction became perpetually blurred. We learned to lie to survive, and in doing so, we became a species that often finds more utility and sometimes more comfort in a well-constructed illusion than in the unvarnished truth. The human mind, it turns out, is a master of its own elaborate deceptions, a testament to how crucial and ultimately inescapable this peculiar skill became.